this meeting of the Cheshire Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission to order at 7:30 p.m. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're not going to say it in unison, just say it on your own. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carrie, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Kurtz,
Here.
Dr. Dimick,
Present.
Mr. Brzezowski, Mr. Graver,
Here.
Mr. McPhee, and Mr. Norback.
Present.
Ms. Dunn makes 5. We have a quorum. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 2nd meeting. Do I hear anything?
I move to accept them as amended by Dr. Dimick.
I second.
Been moved by Tom Norback, seconded by Carrie Dunn. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried unanimously by those commission members present. Communications.
There
Do we
are
have
no
anything?
communications.
Wow, nobody cares. All right. Inspection reports.
There are no written inspections, and with the snow that we have on the ground and the frost, there are no staff inspections.
All right. Enforcement actions. We have a draft motion on the Heber Avarenga on 720 Yalesville Road. And looks like we're ready. We may be ready. They have some information they supplied, and they have an approval that reflects that.
Yes,
Those of you who had questions last time, what do you think?
yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the site map that was sent to commission members today. The engineer working on this plan had, sorry, I'm just trying to get this to lower here. Had worked on a color-coded map indicating where grass would be allowed over the septic system, shown here in green, in the darker green. And in the brown, that highlights the area that is part of the required restoration, which is part of the corrective order, the revised corrective order that's before the commission tonight. And under the corrective order number 1, it makes specific reference to this map, indicating the date that the map was created.
I'm satisfied now with the revised plan and with the staff's proposed wording for the corrective order.
As am I.
So are you moving?
Did either one of you make a motion?
I will move staff wording.
I'll second.
Moved by Dr. Dimick, seconded by Mr. Norback. Any comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously by those commission members present. Talmadge Road. Suzanne, you had some notes on Mr. Krasnicki at 152 Talmadge Road. I can't find him. There was some discussion, correct?
No, I do need to follow up with him and send him a letter to spell everything out for him, and try to get direct communication with him regarding what his status is of getting a site plan together. The commission may recall that the commission had asked to see a visual layout of what the work that was done without a permit, so that the commission could visualize it as opposed to just the narrative. And from there, the commission will decide whether there's a corrective order to be issued or whether to allow them to come in for a permit after the fact. So I will send them a letter prior to the March 2nd meeting.
Is there a
Note
deadline for
Mr.
that?
Brzezowski
Or is it-
has joined.
No, there was no deadline that was given when there was discussion with Ryan McAvoy.
I said, did you note that Dave Brzezowski has joined us?
Oh, yes.
All right,
Thank you.
Carla. Hi, Dave.
How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Yes, so if
Okay,
Carla
is
is
there
watching,
any-
if Carla, if you could note the time that Dave came in, thank you.
7:39. Okay, is there anything further?
Not under
Enforcement?
enforcement actions, no.
Okay, unfinished business. Permit application of Tracy Romanek on South Meriden Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is a staff report for this application, and the applicant's engineer is on the call tonight to provide an overview of what's proposed.
Please.
Hello, everyone. Darren
There you
Overton from SLR
Good
Consulting.
evening.
How are you?
Wonderful.
So I'm here on behalf of the Romanek family, and it is the Romanek family. John Romanek Sr. has owned this property for a number of years. I looked at it back a number of years ago with him for a potential development for this property. I think his son looked at it also, and now his granddaughter is interested in building a house on it, which they came to us and we put together a site plan for that. Suzanne, can I share a screen?
Oh, yes. We'll do that.
So the property's
go.
been in the family for over 30 years. That's as far back as the assessor's records would show.
Are you all set, Darren? There you go.
I think so. Probably displaying your agenda at the moment. So I just want to go to, this is the town GIS mapping. And the property is right here, which you can see is completely wooded.
We-
Darren,
we've
we
not
still
seen
see the
that yet.
agenda.
We're just seeing that agenda.
Oh boy. Let me switch my sharing. I must not have shared my screen. I must have just shared the agenda.
Up at the top, you need to stop sharing this screen and then find the other one and put that one up.
Getting there.
Yeah.
There we go. That's why I picked the browser instead of picking the screen. So coming up in a second. That come up for everybody yet?
Yes.
Have it.
Okay, so the wooded area here in the middle is the property that's the subject of this application. It's a 9.8 acre parcel located at R40 zone. To the north is the Hickory Hill Orchard. To the east is Route 70 or South Meriden Road. There's some existing residential and Michael's greenhouses. South is existing residential that was developed, I think, over the last 10 years. And then to the west, the property is mostly wooded, and it's part of a tributary to Honey Pot Brook, which is further over to the west. You can see the property is wooded. Along Route 70, there's a couple of catch basins. This is a state route. And the pair that show here, there's actually a drainage discharge that goes into a water course, and you can sort of see it through the trees here. This line here is where the drainage discharge goes from the state drainage discharge. And then there's actually a second water course that comes through here and actually is the discharge from the pond over at the Hickory Hill Orchard. So you can see the lot is entirely wooded, and I don't know if you noticed on the screen, but about midway across, the vegetation changes a bit. The west side is more maturely wooded. The east side is probably some successional farm field. And there's quite a bit of underbrush in here with sparse mature trees that are starting to come up and create a canopy. We had our soil scientists go out and map the wetlands on the site, and they turned out to be substantially similar to what is shown on the town mapping, which I just brought up here, where there's an upland area along Route 70, and then there's also a little bit of upland area along the southern property line. But this is a 9.8 acre parcel, and let me see my notes here. There's 8 of it. I think it's 8.6 acres of it is wetland. The topography slopes from Route 70. Almost everything on this slopes to the west relatively gently. Starting up here, the highest point on the site up by Route 70 in the northeast corner is about elevation 290. I think the grade drops about 8 feet to the south along Route 70, and then it drops in back to about an elevation of 230. So relatively gently sloping and fairly consistently sloping. The entire parcel is in the Honey Pot Brook watershed, which drains to the Quinnipiac River. So it's not a public water supply watershed. It's not an aquifer protection area. There's no FEMA floodplain that extends onto the property. That's much further west associated with Honey Pot Brook. So I'll bring up the map that we have for this. I can get to my Adobe here. So here's the plot plan that we've proposed, and this is the flagged wetland line. Our soil scientists went out and flagged that of August of 2020. And you can see on here the water course from the state drainage discharge, which connects the catch basin along the eastern side of the road and discharges through here. So what's proposed is we have a proposed single-family residential house. It's a 3-bedroom house. We did soil testing on the property. We did 2 test pits on the south side here, which are here and here. We did 2 test pits on the north side. What we found was that the test pits on the north side were much better soils, better permeability than on the south side. So we've designed the leaching field of the northern part of the lot. We fit the house in the middle. And then we have a secondary accessory 2-car garage that's also desired by the landowner, or the future landowner, future occupant of the house. So we've tried to fit this in as best we can, recognizing that there's quite a few site constraints here and very limited developable area. The soils here are a Yalesville type of soil, while the wetland soils are at Wilbraham and Menlo back here. So we fit this in as best we can, and we have no direct wetland disturbance for this, but as you can see, much of the development comes very close to the wetland line. There's public water in Route 70 that will serve the new house. Like I mentioned before, the septic system, which we've submitted the plot plan to Chespercut for review. We have, because of the limited developable area of the lot, there's about 0.3 acres of the 50-foot upland review area disturbance. For the most part, we're maintaining the natural drainage patterns here. There isn't really much we can do to modify that. Like I said, everything slopes to the west, and there really isn't much grade to work with to redirect any water, nor do we desire to do that. So we're maintaining the existing drainage patterns. All of the impervious that we're proposing here for the driveway and the house itself is basically disconnected with roof leaders that we've planned to discharge to the ground, and the paved surface areas sheet flow and are swelled around the house and the septic system. There's a soil report that was submitted as part of this. And it basically, the front part of this is a shrub wetland. Like I mentioned earlier, it transitions to more forested wetland in the back. The functions and values are predominantly groundwater discharge, toxicant and sediment retention, nutrient transformation, and wildlife habitat. So for the most part, we're not changing any of the functions and values of the wetland itself. We're losing some of the vegetation, and there's going to be changes in the upland area, but we don't expect any impacts to the wetlands because we're maintaining the drainage patterns, and we won't really be changing the groundwater situation that feeds the wetland from the groundwater table, which, you know, even the eastern side of across the road slopes down here, and this is fed by the groundwater table from a high point that goes all the way back. I think back to the Prinz property is kind of the high point where this hillside slopes down to Honey Pot Brook. We have received some engineering comments, and I'm prepared to discuss those, but at this point, I guess I would turn it over to the commission. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time, or if you'd like me to go through the engineering comments and how we plan to address those, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Darren, if I may, so on your map, you don't have the upland review area?
Yeah, it's there.
It's right here. So this line, this dashed line, goes through the house and along here. That is
Oh,
the
I missed that.
upland review
In other words, the house and garage are all entirely within the upland review area.
That's correct. We don't really have a choice in the matter there because the front setback line runs right across the garage is right on the corner. The house is about 3 feet off the front setback line off of South Meriden Road.
You got a very tight situation, and it's really pushing the envelope in terms of, you know, we allow under certain circumstances some development within the upland review area, but this is a case where all the developments is within the upland review area. It's really pushing things.
To be honest, when I went out there to do the soil testing, I wasn't sure we'd be able to find good enough soils to fit a leaching field out here in the house. I was surprised by these 2 test pits and the perks that we ran on the northern part of the site. The Yalesville soil was better than expected, and we were able to fit it in, but we recognize that we really can't fit these in here without significant encroachment into the upland review area.
And even at that, you're hitting modeled soils at 32 inches in the test pit 1 there. And I recognize that you're planning to put in fill for establishing the septic system, but so it's still not ideal conditions even there. And as you probably remember with Yalesville soils, every once in a while you'll put one down and you will hit weathered bedrock right in the middle of where you thought you had good soil all around it. So 1 test pit doesn't necessarily prove that it's all good.
Yeah, so we got down 96 inches in test pit 2, and we went down 77 inches in test pit 1.
Yeah, test pit 2 is closer to the road and not
Yes.
where you're planning to put the septic.
So that is one of the comments we're working through with Chestercott. They want an additional test pit down gradient of the leaching field, and we're also planning to do, I think, 1 more over here.
So they probably have the same concerns I do then.
Well, they want to see, yes, the conditions in the receiving soil within 25 to 50 feet down gradient of the leaching field. And then we also wanted to get a little bit more coverage over here to see if anything changes.
I also would love to see a little more room for some buffer between the actual structures and the wetland. Admittedly, you're staying out of the wetland, but you're pushing it awfully close there. And in this case, everything is sloping down to the wetland from every direction there. And in its present condition, you do have the shrub growth, which is buffering the runoff from the highway, gets somewhat buffered by that, and that will no longer be there.
And it's also not clear from this report. It's just 1 sentence. It says, which ends with wildlife habitat, but there's no description of what that habitat is. I think we would need a little more information.
What do we have for precedent, if that's the right term, for this much development within the wetland review area? I mean, it seems like a lot. They're asking a lot here. When I think back historically, just seems like they're asking for a lot to develop the whole kit and caboodle just about in the wetland review area, when other people were making them put up fences to protect it. Now here, what are they gonna do? Move the living room couch in front of it? I just don't.
Yeah.
The only precedent I can think of where we allowed things to get this close was one we approved for John Malone many years ago, but he had it where his backyard gradually became wilderness as you approached the wetland. So he had a situation where, first of all, the house wasn't nearly this close, but it did approach in the upland review area, and he had it planned so it became a gradual blending into the surroundings. Other than that, normally this is not sort of thing we do.
There's only about, from what I can see, there's only about 60 square feet of the structure that are outside of the upland review area, if I'm
Yeah.
reading this thing right, if that. I mean, it looks like, you know,
There's
You're gonna
actually,
have a
4
heck
feet
of
or
a time.
something, it's not in the upland review area.
Gonna have a
Am I
heck of
doing
a
this
time
right?
doing the construction of making sure that some vehicle doesn't wander into the wetland, because you normally don't build a house from just one side.
I would suggest reading, there's actually a case that's pretty much on point, which Dr. Dimmick probably knows. Rano versus Cheshire Inland Wetland Commission from 2009.
Uh-huh.
That's where the application was denied. And I think it was because I can't remember now, maybe Suzanne knows, was it, I for some reason can't find my notes, but it was, took away something like 50% of the upland review area. This is pretty much building in the upland. I mean, it's in that case, it was less than in this case. And they upheld the denial of the application. It's Rano, Ranno, and it's our Cheshire Inland Wetlands Commission.
So, I mean, what we have here, like I mentioned before, it's a 9.8 acre lot that
Yeah.
has 8.6 acres just of wetlands on it. And as far as the wildlife, you know, the good thing about the upland area is that it's right at the frontage. So we're not trying to cross wetlands to get to an upland buildable area of the property. And as far as wildlife, I don't think there's a lot of great wildlife habitat right on the frontage of South Meriden Road. And you know, the front part of this lot, I believe, was probably farmland at one time, which is why it's kind of, we see that scrub shrub and it's kind of reverting back to a wooded nature now.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's one of the benefits. And, you know, I know it's hard to get past the amount of upland review area disturbance, but we still have 8.6 acres of undisturbed area, even more than that, because we're not disturbing any of the upland down here on the south side.
Well, if you want to consider the surrounding wetlands, you have about 65 acres of undisturbed wetlands on the adjacent property. This is all small part of a very large wetland. I'm not sure that's a point in your favor, though.
Well, wasn't this all part of one parcel at some point?
Oh, yeah.
So
So it certainly
it was
is part of a
subdivided
much
in such a
larger
way that
wetland corridor.
it left, yeah, right. So this was subdivided in such a way that it left a lot with the vast majority of it being wetlands. So I don't,
That was the piece they thought they couldn't develop when they cut up the rest of the property.
well, how about that?
Yeah, I don't know how this came to be or what property it may have been divided off of. As far as I can tell, this is in existence the way it is for over 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember back, because I've been around on this longer than that, it escapes me.
So Charles, I remember my lone lot over on Half Moon Road. And I think what we did there is we did plant some of a shrub buffer.
Yeah.
I think we put up some split rail fence to define the limits of disturbance and define the wetlands.
And
which
the
I think
property was almost flat.
the applicant will be willing to do here. One of the engineering comments is they want some treatment for stormwater runoff, which we're going to propose to put a rain garden along the back here for the roof leaders to run into. And then actually this swale coming from the driveway can be directed into that and then sheet flow over into the wetland. And then this area below the leaching field can certainly, what part of it is disturbed, or a good portion of this may not be disturbed along here. Some of this could be revegetated if the commission sees that as a benefit.
Do we get an opportunity to get some of these questions and suppositions we have answered, like a public hearing?
We could decide to have a hearing, right, based on that the proposed activity may have a significant impact on the wetlands and watercourses?
Yeah.
Number one. 9.1A.
I will move to schedule a public hearing on this based on potential adverse impact to the wetland because of the nearness, based on 9.1A of the regulations, and for the possibility of considering alternatives to the proposed development, which is 9.1. I can't remember what part of it's in there somewhere.
Is there a second?
Second,
Proposed by Dr. Dimick, seconded by Ms. Dunn. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously by those commission members present. Now, Darren, do you have, do you know what we're getting at? Do you know these things that have to be addressed? Like even the Chesapeake, you say you've applied to Chesapeake, but you haven't gotten an answer. But a lot of things I think need to be squared away. You need a list?
So certainly 9.1A, we can look at the requirements under there. Dr. Dimick mentioned alternatives. We'll look at that. You know, we obviously didn't expect to get an approval tonight, so we figured we'd have some time to do the additional testing and get an approved plan from Chesapeake, which we will continue to work on. Is there anything else that the commission would like to see in regard to this?
Wildlife
to expand-
impact.
go ahead, Dr. Dimick.
I say we need a little bit more on wildlife impact than what has been
Yes.
suggested because of the fact that this is on the edge of a very large and very productive wetland. The wetland itself, as you go off the property, has quite high environmental values. And so we need some input from a professional as to just what the expected impact might be on it. Doesn't say we're going to deny, it just means we need more information to make an informed decision.
Suzanne, do you have some points that you think should be discussed and prepared for the public hearing?
Well, there will need to be prudent, feasible and prudent alternatives proposed. That's a requirement under the public hearing to show how other designs were considered, but were determined not to be feasible for the site. And Darren, if you have reviewed the engineering comments and you have some suggested changes, it would be ideal if we could get that site plan prior to the Thursday before the public hearing of March 2nd. That way we could distribute it and the commission members would all be on the same page.
Yeah, there's no problem doing that. We've already looked at responses to those comments and I talked with Don Nolte about them today. So there should be no problem addressing those and getting a revised plan prior to the hearing.
So the timeline is satisfactory.
Yes.
The next meeting, okay.
So I just want to understand how to address the wildlife issue. Normally we look at that when you're losing wetland area because you'd be directly potentially impacting wetland species. Here we're just losing upland. So how do you want us to go about evaluating that? Just look at what habitat is there under existing conditions? And how the loss of the upland may affect it?
It may be you get your specialist in there and he might be able to make a statement that the change is a question as to whether the changes in the upland that close to the wetland will or will not have an impact on the wetland. And he might be able to come up with a statement that it won't.
Okay.
It's just a concern of ours at this point.
Dr. Dimick, is it also an issue of a risk to the wetland by eliminating the buffer, whether or not there's a risk in both environmentally and in other ways?
Yeah, that's a possibility. One that I mentioned is the fact that, water runs, even though there's catch basins, water is still running overland from the highway across this property. And at the present time, the scrub growth is a pretty good filter that keeps anything from getting into the wetlands there. And there's a question, what will be the change as a result of developing uplands? Now, Darren's already mentioned the possibility of putting in one of these temporary pool things rain garden. Now, whether that makes a difference or not, those are things we just need to have a clear record so that we can indicate we looked at these factors and we considered them.
Darren, also one heads up. Did you, when you talked about Chestercott, did you say it was a 4-bedroom or a 3-bedroom?
3 bedrooms. So the engineering report did note an inconsistency in our notes on that. It's proposed
Okay,
to be
very
a
good.
3-bedroom house.
All right, just checking. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
No, I think I understand what you're looking for. And now we'll talk with Suzanne to coordinate further for the next meeting.
All right,
Thank you
thanks,
for your
Darren.
cooperation. And we'll set the public hearing for, what is it, March 2nd?
March 2nd, yes.
Be held before the regular meeting. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you for your time tonight.
all right. We're on to the next. A permit application from the Scouso Family Trust for Rita Avenue. Is there someone here to represent the applicant? Maybe not.
Yes, Aaron Shoemaker, and it seems like he's going to be unmuting himself soon.
There you go. I found the button. I
There
apologize
you
for
go.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Aaron Schumacher, also with SLR Consulting. Here this evening to discuss the Scouso Family Trust property. I believe Marty Scouso is also on the call this evening. He's the owner representing the property. Suzanne, is it okay if I share that?
Yes.
Map? Okay.
See, let's see if I still have that setting.
I think I have it. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So this is the same site plan that we had sent to you guys. We just put a little, couple colors on it so we could discuss over it. The property that we're looking at is located on Rita Avenue. It's map 14, lot number 33. It's 15,000 square feet, 0.34 acres. It has approximately 0.01 acres of wetlands on the property that you can see highlighted in yellow. It also has an intermittent water course that runs from the wetlands towards this flared end section on the south side of the property. The site is currently wooded. It's located in R20 residential zone. To the north is an R20 lot. To the south is a commercial property. And then just west of the property right over here is the Waterbury town line. Our proposal for this plan is to construct a single family residential house.
George?
Approximately 40 by 25 feet. That's pretty modest sized raised ranch is kind of the style of house we're thinking. We push the house as far to the front setback as we can to get ourselves away from the wetlands as much as possible, and to limit any impacts to the upland review area. We have no direct wetlands impacts. We have just over 3,050 square feet of upland review area impacts. We did look at one alternative of placing the house in the rear, but that resulted in more upland review area impacts. We had initially provided underground storage on this plan, but we had since received some comments from Anchor Engineering, and we're currently looking into providing some sort of rain garden on the plan versus the underground storage. But we're still finalizing the details of that. And also one of the comments we had received from Anchor Engineering is there was some confusion on the soil scientist report. It had the intermittent water course in this natural swale here running from the flared end section towards the wetland. But we've confirmed with the soil scientist and by a field visit that it actually runs from the wetland to the flared end section. These wetlands were initially flagged in July of 2014, and they were re-verified by our wetland scientists on January 15th of this year. So that's basically the project that we're putting before you guys. Is there any questions or anything that we could explain a little further for you?
Well,
For my curiosity, is there is this part of an already approved development? was thinking 0.34 acres. Don't you talk about the lot size?
Yes, yeah, that's the lot size. We don't believe that it was approved previously. That's kind of why we're before you guys tonight. We couldn't find any records of it.
So it's just a piece of property that happened to be there, and it's not a half-acre lot.
Yeah, I think in terms of this piece was probably split off a very long time ago when they were, and I'm not sure what the records are on it. So, but comparing this to what we just did look at, the disadvantage, we're still using mostly inland upland review area. Advantages is that development is further from the wetland line. And also, the proposed development is either at the same level of the wetland or actually about a half foot lower than the wetland. So we don't have drainage. You'll have no drainage from the development into the wetland. So those are pluses. So the minuses, as we mentioned, that there's an awful lot of upland review area being taken. Excuse
And the
me.
lot size is not really relevant.
Not to us, probably.
So
Okay.
a little bit of our backyard will drain towards the intermittent water course, and the wetland. This piece of the rear house will get that way, but the front will come over to, we're thinking about putting some sort of rain garden over in this area by the side of the lot.
And Aaron, is that something that you're evaluating based on the engineering comments?
Yeah, so that's based on the engineering comments that we received from Anchor. We're addressing all their comments right now. Like I said, the soil scientist report, we'll get that clarified. And then we are going to work on getting some above ground rain garden type feature. And then the other comments we will address as well.
Did you also have some vegetation acting as a buffer in the back there?
So the site is currently wooded up to the street line today. So we're leaving about 8 foot of vegetation between the edge of the wetlands and the yard area that we have shown today.
Oh, okay.
All right. We definitely need more information to be provided. Should we just take up the next meeting, or do you think this should be subject to a public hearing? Any
Okay,
comments?
get some more information and then decide about a public hearing?
Yeah, I think let's do that because
No.
we have time to do that. I think we used a little more input. I'm not nearly as worried about this one as I was the previous one, but it's still, I'm not sure we have enough information to go forward.
The commission does have until the next meeting to decide to hold a public hearing.
Yeah.
So the commission would have to decide at the next meeting at the latest.
All right, well, we'll have the
Okay.
information before,
What we need is more information anyway.
Okay.
We don't have to have a public hearing, just have at the next meeting, more presentation for some of the questions that we had and some of the questions that you had, Aaron.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, do you guys have any questions from the commission besides the outstanding comments from Anchor Engineering?
I'd like to have a little bit better description of, other than saying it's wooded, of just what the area is like between the proposed house and the wetlands there.
Okay,
Normally we do a field walk, but
Yeah.
it's
it's
not
not bad.
necessarily the best weather to see what's going on. More snow predicted Thursday and Friday.
yeah.
okay, so a little bit of a description of kind of the vegetation that's going to be remaining on site, what that would be consistent of.
Yeah, and what the wetland margin itself actually looks like. I don't ever remember visiting this one. I visited half the wetlands in the town. I don't think I've ever visited that one.
And I think your soil scientists, just like in our last one, said there's wildlife habitat here in discussing the functions. If you have any more information about that.
Okay.
Wildlife could just be squirrels for all that matter.
Could be. I just want to be real clear about it.
And the soils in this area are all shallow to bedrock, as I remember. Actually, they're bedrock outcrops near here.
Yeah,
So,
that's correct. Yeah, so this lot would be on sanitary sewer and public water.
yeah. Now, have you gotten the approval for connection to the sanitary sewer yet?
We're working on that process with Anchor actually as well. We're working through, this might be on a piece of the sewer that actually goes to Waterbury, so there's a little bit we have to do to work through that with them, but
Oh, that's right. That upland, the Cheshire Highlands at one point had a problem of getting connections. So I thought that was solved about 8 or 9 years ago.
yeah, I spoke to the consultant a few days ago, and they were just working on finding out exactly what they'd like us to do to apply for that. So we are working on it, though.
So we still have a couple of loose ends we need to pick up anyway. You know, even though we accepted this application at the last meeting, we didn't actually get to see it at that time. It just had come in. We hadn't gotten a map or anything. So this is all brand new to us tonight in terms of getting information.
Aaron, what was the underground storage that you were talking about? And you said it was replaced. Could you give a little bit more detail on that?
Yeah, so on this plan that I have up on the screen here, we had proposed some underground storm chambers, some of the plastic chambers with stone. We had proposed some in the backyard here to collect both the roof drains from the building, and then we had proposed some in the front up here to collect some of the roof drains from the front of the house as well. But basically, the consultant engineer was very correct in a rain garden would work a lot nicer for this site and would be a better overall finished product. So that's the path that we'd like to move forward with.
Okay, so there wouldn't be collection and storage underground for the
No.
water runoff. It would
Yeah,
just,
no, so looking at this plan, we would remove these chambers in the back here. We'd remove these chambers on the side here. And what we're thinking right now is some sort of rain garden kind of along the side of the property over here. That would
Okay.
collect kind of the front yard driveway area and then the roof drainage as well.
okay.
Okay, anything else for tonight, or should we continue the next meeting?
Let's, I think we need to continue the next meeting with more information coming in the meanwhile.
And a revised map.
Yeah, revised map.
All that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sounds good. We'll do it.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, new business. A permit application for Chow Ting Wu and 1530 Notch Road, and this is another one we're not going to discuss tonight. We just have to note that it's on the agenda.
Oh,
Now, what did I leave
Correct,
out,
Mr.
Susan?
Chairman. Yes, the date of receipt is today's meeting date, February 16th. This will be discussed at the next meeting.
All right. Is there any other new business to come before the commission?
No, there's not.
Well, we have nobody to talk about. Well, while we're on air.
No.
Okay.
No, other than welcome again, Tim.
Yeah,
Yep.
Good to see you.
we'll shake hands at some other time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we'll call this meeting closed, and I don't have the time.
It's 8:14 p.m.
Well, thank you very much. 8:14.